as we're moving on into another playoff matchup. The Philadelphia 76ers versus the Brooklyn Nets in a 3-6 matchup here where we have uh, Joel Embiid, NBA scoring champion. They already announced that as well. I believe he's going to be undoubtedly the MVP of the league as well as that. So that's big honors for Joel Embiid. Uh, James Harden has been an All NBA type player this year, especially coming back from injury. Has been 22 and 11, I believe, so far, and has been great in that regard. But this series is really the Mikal Bridges revenge series. This is a guy who was recently traded for Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant going to Phoenix, Mikal Bridges going to Brooklyn, and Mikal Bridges has come out gangbusters, scoring 27 points a game, right? Like he's really shooting the ball well. I believe on 47-37 splits from the field and from 3-point line. Like he's doing it. Like he's doing it. The Brooklyn has given him the ball. They trusted him and Cam Johnson. Like, yo, go out there and score. He's been able to do it. He's been killing. But the reason why I call this Mikal Bridges revenge series is because he was traded by the Philadelphia 76ers in 2018 for Zaire Smith in a first-round pick, sending him to Phoenix. And this guy went to Villanova in college, which is in Philadelphia, gets drafted by Philly, seems like a dream come true, and then they trade him. And when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, like how he would have looked next to Joel Embiid in that regard, a guy that really developed, can really defend on his side of the ball, that can really shoot the ball. Now he's able to create his own shot. So that development in his game, that's kind of what Philly needs, right? Even when those times when they had Ben Simmons and all that stuff like that, that's kind of what they needed, right? They needed a guy on the wing that can go get buckets. Jimmy Butler kind of, but this guy has a little bit more range. And they settled with Tobias Harris. And you can kind of see the missteps there, right? Like Mikal Bridges is on fire. It's going to be interesting to see how he plays in this series. You know, he's really going to be the number one guy in the series. He has Spencer Dinwiddie with him, Cam Thomas. He has a couple other guys with him on that team there. And I think that's one thing that Brooklyn does have, right? Like they can throw a bunch of different looks at Philly. On the defensive end, they have depth, have multiple guys that can come in and shoot the ball. It's going to be a good test for Philadelphia. And, you know, Mikal Bridges, you know, having the opportunity to show out like that, it's going to be interesting on his end, you know, to see how he comes out and plays. And hopefully he's able to have good showing for Brooklyn, who have been who have had past couple seasons of turmoil, right? So to see some stability, see some type of consistency, normalization, I should say, like, you know, normalcy. It's interesting because this team was in turmoil 3 months ago, right? Like they had Kevin Durant, they had Kyrie Irving both wanting out. Steve Nash gets fired. All this other stuff happening with the Brooklyn Nets. And finally turning around, you start putting some pieces together. You got Mikal Bridges, you got Cam Johnson, you got Spencer Dinwiddie. You got a little bit more stable guys that just want to play hoop and go out and play. And with that, Jacques Vaughn doesn't have much of a headache. The only thing that has been a headache so far after that trade has possibly been the injury of Ben Simmons. Like he's just not available. He hasn't been available. He's probably not going to be available until probably next season already. So now when you look at it from that standpoint, despite all that, they're in the playoffs, firmly in the playoffs, out of the play-in, which they were battling Miami, trying to avoid that spot. They were able to do that. And the Brooklyn Nets are in a better position than the Dallas Mavericks, Miami Heat, other teams that people thought that they were going to tank to. I thought they were going to tank because it's like I didn't see a reason for them to continue playing. But Mikal Bridges, Spencer Dinwiddie, Cam Johnson, kudos to those guys for coming in and balling. Kudos to those guys, especially Mikal Bridges, but that can be a revenge series for him. Moving on to Embiid and Harden starting their playoff run again together after the last season where it ended terribly. Toronto and then Miami. So you got these two guys, two All-Stars, two guys that should be all NBA, scoring champions, multiple time scoring champions now. And Joel Embiid most likely going to win his MVP award. This is going to start their playoff run, right? Like, this is Harden and Embiid again, especially after last season where you thought everything was going to go fine. They flame out, random injuries. For the first time in a long time, both these guys are healthy. They're getting into the NBA playoffs. And, there's been questions there. I always thought Joel Embiid show up in playoff games and at least did his part to try to help Philly advance and lead. James Harden has flamed out. And that's kind of what everybody's now waiting for again, with a possible max extension on the line, multiple suitors if he decides to leave. Can he show up in the playoffs for Philadelphia and win? That's the last thing that we're waiting for James Harden. We know the accolades. We know how great of it he is as a player. Can you win in the playoffs? Can you perform in big-time games? Can you put that together is what we're waiting for. And that's kind of what we've been waiting for with Philly, right? Like, can they put something together to actually get to Eastern Conference Finals? At least. Now, they're probably going to be facing the Boston Celtics in the second round, so I think not. I don't want them to. Sorry, I'm a Celtics fan. I'm going to be a little selfish on this one. But when you're looking at Harden and Embiid, these are two guys that have failed to get to that next level despite how great they are, right? Like, and you can say that's team dynamics, coaching, them coming up short, whatever the case may be. These are two great players in the game today and have not been able to get over the hump in that regard. So you have these two guys together, two dynamic scorers, two dynamic players. Can they get over the hump? Can they get over that curse, whatever you want to call it? Can they do that? Can they proceed to keep moving forward and stamp it on their resume like, hey, we're winners. We can do this. We can get by that. And finally, Doc Rivers was also a part of this. Ever since that 08 championship in Boston, he has had playoff appearance after playoff appearance, blown leads, blown 3-1 leads that has been well documented. Can he finally put something together and get them over the hump? And Brooklyn's going to be a good test. Brooklyn's going to be feisty. They got nothing to lose. But looking at Philadelphia, it's like, can you really get over the hump? That's the question. That's been the question with this team. Ben Simmons, they had Jimmy Butler. They all of these guys. Tyrese Maxey is now added. He's playing really well, coming off the bench, helping the team out when scoring, especially on the offensive end, especially for that second unit. So you start to wonder, like, just looking at the playoff run, I think they're going to get by Brooklyn just because they have the better talent. I think Joel Embiid is the best player in that series, of course, and they're just going to dominate them and overwhelm them. Brooklyn's going to try to put up a fight. I can see this going 4-1. But you're just wondering, outside of Harden, outside of Embiid, outside of Tyrese Maxey, who else is going to step up for them? George Niang, Paul Reed, Tobias Harris. He's the biggest question mark in all this, right? Like, can he finally step up and seem to earn his max dollars, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's the biggest question for Philadelphia. We know what they have with James Harden. Can he do it in the playoffs? We know what we're going to get out of Joel Embiid. Can he stay healthy? We know what we're going to get out of Doc Rivers. We're going to get tenacity, resilience. But can you hold a lead in the playoffs? Can you put that over the hump? Can you guys actually put together another winning team here in Philadelphia? That's the question, right? Like, despite how talented that team is, do they have a great bench? Depends on what night they want to use it. Can James Harden and Joel Embiid win 4 straight playoff series to get to the finals? That's to remain to be seen, and that's what we're waiting for. That's what we want to see. That's what we're waiting for. We're waiting to see if Philadelphia can finally take that next step and continue building. And when you got a guy like Joel Embiid, who I predicted was going to be MVP this season, has come out gangbusters, played without James Harden and Tyrese Maxey there for a little bit. Seems like he's ready for the playoffs. Seems like he's ready to go. Can he stay healthy? That's a big question. And we shall see. We shall see. Looking at other teams, we got Denver in the first seed in the Western Conference. Memphis tied up the second seed. The Kings are waiting to see who they're going to play. And it's been interesting because we have the Clippers, we have the Suns, we have the Lakers, all battling between that 4 and 5 spot, right? The 5 and 7 spots, right? So Clippers, Lakers, Golden State, all battling, trying to figure out who's going to play who in the first round. So we're still waiting on that, right? And it's going to be a big Sunday, right? Like, we're going to see who's actually going to be where with seeding, who's going to tank. I don't know all the magic numbers and stuff like that to see who wins or who has the tiebreaker, whatever the case would be. But it's going to be an interesting day of the last day of the season as we wind down. I can't wait. And the playoffs are here. The playoffs are going to be here next week. And we're going to get a lot of entertaining things going forward. And I can't wait to do that, talk about that, examine that, go over that. Hopefully I can invite some people on. But don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Check me out on YouTube, Spotify. And thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for listening, of course. And, of course, give me feedback. Always give me feedback, comments, likes, dislikes. And if you just disagree with what I'm saying, let's see where it goes. Let's talk basketball. That's what this is about. But until next time, thank you for joining me. I'm out.